Marketing is a podcast for business owners and leaders, produced by my dad, Steve Davis, and his colleague at Talked About Marketing, David Olney, in which they explore marketing through the lens of their own 4 Ps: person, principles, problems, and perspicacity. Yes, you heard that correctly. Apart from their love of words, they really love helping people. So they hope this podcast will become a trusted companion on your journey in business.
Hi, Steve and Dave. I hope you're well. I have just finished listening to your podcast featuring Golden North ice cream, etc. And here are my thoughts for what they're worth. Because what are my thoughts if I don't share them with somebody else?
My thoughts exactly, David.
I like it when people share their thoughts.
Can you just be quiet? We're about to start a podcast.
Our 4 Ps. Number 1, person. The aim of life is self-development. To realise one's nature perfectly. That is what each of us is here for. Oscar Wilde.
As you just heard in the beginning of this program, Belle Baker sent a message to myself and David. Hello, Belle. Reflecting on our reflections from episode 6, in which we were talking about The Next Conversation by Jefferson Fisher. And a couple of things that I was particularly wanting to work on that he'd raised, such as reducing the use of the word sorry when it's just being used as a crutch word, a filler, a little automatic reaction, as opposed to when the word sorry is called for genuinely. I actually shared that at the beginning of the conference I was emceeing for the South Australian Visitor Information Services Network. And, of course, then for the rest of the time I had people calling me out when I accidentally said sorry, so that was more for me. But I'm not sorry for that, because we all learned some great lessons there of just finding different positive ways. So if you missed last episode, A, go back and have a listen. But B, one quick example is like today when I was 5 minutes late to pick up David. Instead of saying sorry, I said thanks for waiting for me. Did you notice I said that, David?
I think I was more concerned with finding the door, saying hello. So sadly, your big effort, I was just glad that you were there.
Yeah, it's a thankless life, really.
What, being glad that people think it's good that you've turned up?
Well, there is that. Anyway, Belle wanted to share a couple of things. First of all, she agrees. She struggles with the overuse of the word sorry. And this is important for the person segment, because this is about us not diminishing the power of our words and our conversation, and thus diminishing the presence we have. In that message, she did say, women in particular, there is a culture of feeling like you have to apologise for taking up your space, which is not something most blokes feel. That's just one shade of what she was talking about. But the 2 people trying to go into the same supermarket aisle together, she said in her example, and I'm just like her. Oh, sorry. I have nothing to apologise. We were both equally at blame, and she did confess that, you know, if you just stop and let them go through and they don't say anything, we both have been known to say, well, my pleasure. Really sarky, David. We're both going to try and stop that. Does that bring you happiness?
It brings me some happiness. I really like Belle's other example of when people say it's just a small token of our appreciation. The word just is a word that should more often than not be used. Either you're grateful or you're not grateful, or it's a token of appreciation or it isn't. But yes. Just is not adding value. If anything, it's questioning the value.
It is worth having a listen to that segment if you've missed it, because we go into a bit more nuance, a bit more detail on it. But we revisited it because of Belle sharing those ideas, and also because there is another body of work which we think in a world of Venn diagrams would have a big overlapping centre point, and that is the book called Magic Words that you have been, I think raving is fair enough to say for a while now.
Raving is a very particular word. What I'd say is I always like the fact that Jonah Berger's arguments are data-driven. This is someone where when we got the capacity on the internet to go, what words get used? What words get used most? Where do words get used? Which words have the most impact? What words keep people on a web page? What words keep people listening to a podcast? I like the fact that everything Jonah Berger does is based on a heap of research, and you can go and look at the evidence and go, yeah, that's not just him coming up with an idea. It's him seeing a trend in how humans actually communicate and how they positively affect each other.
Let's have a listen to him talking here about a couple of words that are pigeon pairs in many of our lives, the words should and could.
And this one comes from some research on problem solving, right? Often we're stuck in a difficult situation. We're trying to solve a problem. We're trying to come up with a creative solution, but we don't know how to do it. We're sort of spinning our wheels. We're not really getting anywhere. We're often stuck. We're trying to figure out what to do. Well, often in those situations, we ask ourselves, what should I do? Right? What should I do? How should I solve this problem? But some researchers wondered if a slight shift in language could lead people to come up with better solutions. So they gave people a bunch of problems. And for some people, they asked them, what should you do in this situation? But for a second set of people, they used a subtle linguistic shift. Rather than ask them what they should do, they asked them what they could do in that situation. Now, again, the difference between should and could is pretty small. It's only a few letters. Yet those few letters led to a big increase in how creative people were in solving those problems. People came up with better problems, better solutions to those problems, and rated as more creative the solutions when they were using coulds instead of shoulds. Because shoulds focus us on there's one particular answer. There's one right course of action. And if we could only get there, right, we will be successful. But coulds encourage us to widen our viewpoint a little bit more, to realize there are multiple courses of action, multiple places we could go or things we could think about. And all of them may not be good ideas. All of them may not be the best possible approach, but at least by considering that wider set of options before coming up with a final solution, we're much more likely to reach a positive outcome in the end. And so when stuck on a tough situation or trying to motivate others to come up with a better solution, don't just ask what we should do. Tell them and us to think about what we could do instead. By focusing on coulds rather than shoulds, we can come up with better solutions and be more creative.
A nice little reflection that he has there, the way that should closes down options and could opens potentialities.
Yeah, I'd have to say, historically, there's times where I've wanted to say we should do this to people because I want to get things moving, and I've done the calculation that it would be better to go in this direction and just get it done. But the more you interact with people, the more you realise that should, well, you can maybe push people to do something, but are they really on board? Do they feel heard? Do they feel like they're an equal contributor in whatever happens next? So really, take the time to say, could we do this? Or have you got a suggestion? It's so much more powerful than using should to try and wrangle the world to turn out the way you want quickly, when in doing so, you potentially lose an ally.
What you're saying there is you bring people along with a sense of agency together, that everyone's proactively got their hands in the wheel, on the wheel, as opposed to someone being shoved in a corner with a task to do.
Absolutely. There's times in small business where someone just has to say, I need you to do this. And just make it a clear, this needs to be done, I want you to do it now. But if it's something where you want everyone on board and there's time and there's resources, could we get together as a group and discuss how we're going to move forward with this thing? Here's the thing I think we could do. What does everyone else think might work? It just works so much better.
I think it's fascinating the power that our choice of words has, the impact, the consequences of the words we choose, because we come back to that could versus should, looking through the lens of should, shrinking down options to basically one, and could, opening them up. I did do an interview for another podcast, which will be, if it's not out already, will be out soon, called Around the School Table, interviewing lots of different people from the world of education. And one gentleman in particular has championed chess in his public high school, and it's been transformative for a number of reasons. And when that comes out, we might talk about it and share that link, because there is so much to learn from life from this. But one of the things that stuck with me that intersects what we're talking about now is the very first thing they teach kids is the end game. And the big lesson they learn or teach is that there are more than one way. There is more than one way to end a chess game. There are multiple ways they could end. They're not always going to go your way. And just letting kids really have it sink in that there are lots of different options out there, and if it didn't work this time, it's okay. We could have chosen something else. There's a great power that comes from that, David.
Could opens up ambiguity, but ambiguity means there's room for agency. So a little bit of ambiguity, a little bit of discomfort is worth it if everyone has more agency.
Checkmate.
Our 4 Ps. Number 2, principles. You can never be overdressed or overeducated. Oscar Wilde.
Viva la principle, David.
You better not hit me with a baguette.
Yes. Well, I have been listening to the history of the French Revolution, or one of the French revolutions. It's a fascinating thing. It's through a podcast called The Rest is History, and I'm loving this because I'm absorbing in these 4 or 5 part little 30-minute episodes of walking back through bits of history that I haven't really taken the time to read about deeply, but I'm getting much more colour and nuance from it. One of the scary things is, at any point in human history, it seems that many societies are susceptible to the rise of Trump-like, Hitler-like people who just sees and you go, oh my God, why can't they think? It's not just social media that's softened our brains. It seems that there's a lot of that lying dormant within us, David.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who would like to be told, here's what we're going to do, I'm going to lead, you're going to follow, and it's going to be great.
Isn't that interesting? That's the could and should thing. Some people just want to be told, you should do this.
You should do this, and I'm going to lead you. Yep. Whereas, please be suspicious of those people.
Yes. Well, one of the things that really jumped out at me is when they were talking about an aspect of the French Revolution when David, a very famous artist at the time, was painting these striking paintings of French citizens dressed in ancient Roman garb and making all the buildings look like it was ancient Rome. There was a real, as the Republic was finding its way, there was a great fondness and connection they felt with ancient Rome to give them some sort of rubric to set themselves up for.
The look that you get in his paintings, which is kind of austere and lacking in any sense of kind of flummery and self-consciously antiquarian, I think this is his own. And under the revolution, he brings this style to public display because people recognize that he's brilliant at, the visuals. And, as with so much else, in a revolutionary situation, people need a new look. They need expressions of the revolution's identity that aren't drawing on what is being repudiated and rejected. And so he's the person who, for instance, is coordinating these great festivals that are being held on the Champ de Mars on Bastille Day. And of course, David entirely recognizes the Roman connotations of this, the Roman echoes of it. He's organizing when Voltaire's remains are brought to the Panthéon. It's a very kind of Roman-looking building. So again, it's a kind of classical ceremony, and the Panthéon had originally been intended to be a church. So it's this idea of replacing Christianity with something that is Roman and revolutionary simultaneously. And Lynn Hunt, who's written a lot about this, is brilliant on all this. I mean, she says there is no government without rituals and without symbols. You need rituals, you need symbols, and therefore you need people who are able to create and invent it.
Interesting, David, having a different type of clothing and specific hats of that observation that every new government or any government needs a set of rituals and symbols so that people know what it stands for. This is sounding like we're going to find some parallels here to branding.
Oh, very much so. It's that thing of you can put the new in front of people, like companies try and do, like governments try and do. But initially, all it is new. If it doesn't have value, if it's not repeated, if it doesn't actually seem to make things better, the novelty of novelty can wear off pretty quick.
I think what happens with symbolism and ritual when you're involved in any sort of organisation that's doing that, there's something that's pre-verbal, that's non-word based within us that seems to be connecting to that. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Look, we have accounts of the Spartans, dancing, synchronous dancing in huge groups, to have that sense of I'm moving, but everyone else is moving, and we're all moving the same, and we're all moving together. The power of symbolism, the power of being part of something bigger than yourself, the power of uniformity.
And the other nuance that came through in that little clip we just heard is part of the rationale is to distance what now is compared to what once was, to say we've made a difference. And this is where rebranding comes into the fore for this particular conversation. Some rebranding operations, and we all know that the definition of the brand is always in the eye of the beholder. We don't really control it. We can try and set things up. We can strive to be thought of and spoken about in certain ways, but at the end of the day, it's what people's interactions with us have been that forge the brand value that we have out there, the brand definition. That said, there are some rebrandings which is just a little shift to a font or a slight change of colour tone, which makes everyone inside the organisation feel fantastic because they've got bored, they're watching this stuff, they're seeing the same website every day without realising that most of us don't. Most of us, your brand is a glancing blow that we might have from time to time. It's new for us every time. So I think sometimes changes happen because of a boredom within rather than a rationale for it. And I saw one on the weekend, David, a company here in Adelaide, I think, that works in, I think it's some sort of degree of securities review. The video of the CEO, who wasn't looking at the camera off to the side to try and be a bit arty, was just in a monologue. It was all us, 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 and we're this. So that's another side of the coin where it's all just internally focused. But back to this thing, branding. If you are going to really rebrand, should you draw a line in the sand? I think there's going to be times when you want that, especially if you've taken over a company and the previous management was terrible, versus just changing direction. There's a lot to think about, David.
Yeah, and I think France is a brilliant example because if we look at it, the French Revolution really did turn France on its head, and we ended up with an interesting combination of things. French culture, French food, wine culture, fashion, the arts maintained extreme importance, but added to that came the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. This is a huge, sort of melting pot of the best of the old and the best of a new idea. And I think probably if you want to rebrand, make sure you don't throw everything out or no one will know what to hang on to. Keep the best, add what you want new, and then make sure it gets repeated, make sure that it's implemented, make sure people see the new in action and connecting with the best of the old so they can see its merit and see its place and see that the transformation to this new perception is worthwhile.
And who would have thought that in this modern age of revisiting branding, brand messaging, etc., we can still learn something from the 1700s and beyond.
Our 4 Ps. Number 3, problems. I asked the question for the best reason possible. Simple curiosity. Oscar Wilde.
David, in the problems segment, I hope you don't mind me breaking confidences, but I want to talk about using protection.
This could go so sideways like usual.
Well, there's a lot of emails I've been getting lately called with headlines like, or subject lines like, mail protection notice. And I should just spell that out. That's MAIL, as in your email protection notice. Some of them look crappy. You can tell they're spam. Others are looking pretty good. and I'm looking at one now on my screen where it said it's now time to maintain your password activity to avoid login interruption. And they'd made a little pre-selected radio button, a little dot that's been selected with Steve. It talked about marketing there, so it looks official. It looks like it's a pre-filled form. And it says, if you don't click through here, if the server does not receive your response in 24 hours, you may have login issues. If I didn't know better, I would have just handed over my password to absolute crooks. It's dangerous out there. I think the reflex should always be, with anything like this, is we should never do it on our automatic thinking. What's that one? Mode 1 or Mode 2? Which one's the...
Oh, golly, now I'm thinking about it. I'm pretty sure it's System 1. System 1 is fast, I think.
Yeah, just fast. We don't want fast thinking with these things. What we should do is, in fact, I've had a few this week of people, active clients and clients from a long time ago, just flick an email our way. Just double-checking, does this look legit? I feel like I've done a good deed for the day when I can help save people from that. You need some trusted person to bounce something off because it's always there, and I just wanted to share this in our problem segment of a new flavour of that of about to lose access to your email. Typically, these are going to be BS most of the time.
Our 4 Ps. Number 4. Perspicacity. The one duty we owe to history is to rewrite it. Oscar Wilde.
David, I want to propose something to you.
Does it involve protection?
Continuing the theme, in fact, it's the no use of protection. I want to make the point that at Talked About Marketing, we pay close attention to everything. And so I want you to stand in the middle of the road. I will drive my car at you at 95 kilometres an hour and at the last minute apply the brakes so that my car stops and just touches your cane softly. Are you up for this?
I want you to have some advanced driver training and then we'll reconsider.
Well, the reason I mention this, David, is there was a Ford Falcon ad that you might, dear listener, remember from 1978, should you have been born at that time, in which there was a big racetrack in the middle of nowhere, and standing on it were about 5, I think, of the top drivers, racing car drivers for Ford. Alan Moffat, you remember that name, don't you, David?
Absolutely.
Colin Bond, John Goss, Dick Johnson. I was a big fan of Dick.
He would have been the youngest of them at that point, I would imagine.
Yes, probably why I associated with him. Ron Dixon and Murray Carter. And what they did is they stood on the racetrack in place of witches' hats, while another driver in a big hulking Ford Falcon came tearing at them at high speed and weaved between them. This is before the age of fancy schmancy special effects. They were having skin in the game. Let's have a listen to the ad.
Between them, these 6 professional racing drivers have won just about everything worth winning in Australian motorsport. They came to the Ford high-speed test track today to prove a point. This is a production model 78 Falcon 500. Now, Falcon suspension is matched to high-quality steel belt radial tires and is engineered for smooth ride as well as for handling. The Falcon is now traveling at over 90 kilometers per hour. Once again. And the point we're making is that no matter how a car looks when it's driven around witches' hats, it's how a car performs when your life's at stake that really counts. We never felt better about Falcon. And Falcon never felt better.
I think that's a stunning piece of advertising because it would have made me then, does make me now think, wow, yes, I can actually trust the safety of that car. It's going to hold its own because they've risked their pedigree.
It's such an interesting ad because we don't know who the driver in the car is.
No, we don't.
So it'd be so interesting to know who was in the car that they all felt comfortable doing this. And I know you could film this in a way so that it's probably a little bit safer than it really is, but it's not really very safe. And it's a whole different perception of safety. Now all the safety in our cars is you can screw up monumentally. Everyone else around you can screw up monumentally, and your car will stop you dying. This is actually saying this is a precise piece of machinery where if you switch on, you can make sure you and everyone else get home safely. Complete inversion of how we define safety now.
And even here, I notice, I think, a starker contrast. This is saying you will not do harm to others. And the ads today are, you'll smash through lots of other people, kill a few pedestrians, but you'll be and fine. Your little baby in the back are going to be really happy.
Yeah.
And as people buy bigger and bigger and bigger trucks on our roads, I think that's just writ large, that thought that long as I'm safe, tough luck, baby.
Yeah, no concept that you've got skin in the game, everyone else has got skin in the game. So how about we all play the game better?
Yeah, what a fantastic ad. Does it make you enthused to do the ad I'm talking about for Talked About Marketing?
Like I said, if you go do the advanced driver training course, I would consider it.
There's always caveats out there, always caveats.
Well, there is. That's why these 6 guys had won everything you can win in Australian motor racing, because they did the hard work.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were top of their game. They had nothing else to live for. So a bit like you, David. You've achieved everything you've wanted. Why not put it on the line for a swan song? But I won't hold you to. Okay, I'll pull back. Don't worry. I actually wouldn't mind doing one of those advanced driving courses.
And I'll happily come along and ride shotgun and hang out the window and yell and scream in Yahoo. It'll be awesome.
But here's the final thought. Perspicacity, we do reflect on whether this would work today. I think, depending on how it's done, this still has legs. The thing you'd have to fight about is this culture that everything's fake news. It must have obviously been a trick. It might actually be watered down because no one would believe it was real.
Yeah, this level of skin in the game, everyone would be incredulous now that anyone would take the risk for a product.
Yeah, that's right. This is the age of responsibility, personal responsibility. And now we kind of hope that someone else is being responsible for us and everything.
Very strange times where there's not skin in the game and personal responsibility is said endlessly, but it's very hard to define what it now means.
Let's come outside now, David. We're finished. Now, don't get suspicious. I'll just let you stand.
I'm going to stand near a tree.
Yeah, and if you hear a car approaching, just relax.
Or jump at the last second.
Thank you for listening to Talking About Marketing. If you enjoyed it, please leave a rating or a review in your favourite podcast app. And if you found it helpful, please share it with others. Steve and David always welcome your comments and questions, so send them to podcast@talkedaboutmarketing.com. And finally, the last word to Oscar Wilde. There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about.